Yeah, his back's a little crooked, and his gait is kind of slow, but a lifetime chasing cattle's bound to take its toll, you know. He can't chase 'em like he used to. He just can't stand the shocks since that knothead bronc exploded and left him on the rocks. 50 hard years in the saddle, and now his bones won't let him ride. A cane now helps him hobble where once he used to stride. It's easy to dismiss him, to pass him with a frown, just another has-been whose time is running down. But those bowed legs tell the story of the broncs he's had to peel. So take your hat off when you meet him, 'cause by God, that man is real.
Whenever I think about American cowboys, I picture rough, tough men on horseback, wearing Stetson hats, pointy-toed boots and Levi's, riding cattle drives and keeping ranches in working order. But after a hard day on the range, cowboys of the Old West would sit around the campfire at night and entertain one another with songs, poems, or stories. Who would have ever known that these rough, tough men would have such gentle souls? But let Ken Graydon fill you in on what really makes a cowboy tick.
I was born in California, 1933, and from the time I was 2, I grew up in Delano, which is in the middle of the San Joaquin Valley. And at that time, there was a lot of open land, where now it's all under cultivation, and it was the opportunity to ride horses, to get out into the open, and my dad, having been a cowboy in northern Arizona, saw to it that we learned to take care of livestock, horses, cattle, and that we learned how to handle them, how to ride. In 1948, Mom designed and had built on the place a house of adobe. The blocks were made from soil on the ranch, and it was at that point, I believe, the second adobe in Delano. It no longer exists. The last time we were through the valley, it had been eliminated. These pots were things that Mom picked up, I believe, when she was a student at the University of Arizona, and I think they came from Acoma Pueblo. I know she had this one, and one larger one we didn't bring out. But she's had those since the 1920s. This, I think, is San Ildefonso, but I'm not sure. The spurs were spurs that Dad used when he was a rider in Arizona. They look very cruel, but it's a very free rowel. And what the spur did actually was get the horse's attention and remind him that there was somebody on top who wanted him to go in a particular direction. These were Mom's spurs. They had a much gentler looking rowel, but they served the same purpose. They just got the animal's attention. Mom had a fairly large collection of Navajo rugs, which I now have. This is one of them. There are some with a lot of red in them, various colors, but they're with the old dyes from before they were bringing in the current aniline dyes that they're using. And this was my dad's last saddle. I just kind of like to keep it around. It was a diversified property. We had 40 acres of olives. We had open ground for row crops. We had permanent pasture where we raised cattle and horses, eventually going from just plain horses into quarter horses. We showed quarter horses all over California in the Pacific Coast Quarter Horse Association shows.
Ken learned as a young boy that he could sing. He and his mother and younger brothers sang 3-part harmony while riding in the car. He learned later that he could write. His songs and poems reflect the wisdom and wit of men who made their way on the strength of their hands and keenly developed native intelligence.
I started writing poetry and music much later in life. I had been a part of an organization called the Death Valley 49ers, and kept finding little snippets of history about the Death Valley area that seemed to want to be ballads and poems and songs, and nobody had done it, so I started doing that. And subsequently, I found that there were other poets in the genre, and I feel I've added a little bit to it.
An hour short of midnight, dearly longing for a break, Clyde and Willie parked their Jeep beside a mountain lake. Offloaded tents and rifles, sleeping bags and Coleman lamp, and tired to the bone, the boys proceeded to make camp. Now, if you spent your time in service, you'll remember that it's true that sleeping with your rifle was the prudent thing to do. So leaving all their other gear and food just where it was, the boys pulled off their boots and promptly snored the woods abuzz. A couple hours later, Mother Nature wakened Clyde, and he stepped outside the tent for what should not be done inside. About 30 seconds later, he flat ruined Willie's sleep, yelling, "Willie, quick, my rifle! There's a bear in the back of the Jeep!" The first shot missed the rounded hump. Clyde jacked another shell, and steadying his aim, Clyde blew his spare tire plumb to hell, and watched stock still in horror at that which came to pass as the slug continued through Clyde's extra jerry can of gas. The fireball which erupted could be seen for miles around as the Jeep's main tank kicked in, burned that sucker to the ground. You want to liven up a party or hear a master swear? Just ask Clyde about the night he bagged that 15-inch radio bear.
You step up to the window and you feel it start anew. Pay the man your entry fee for number 32. Little bull named Rotary, always spinning round, always wants to hook you when he gets you on the ground. Watch him herd the bulls in, load them in the line. Get your rigging and climb the fence back at number 9. Tighten up your rigging, rosin down your glove, settle in his middle from the chute rails up above. Feel the muscles surging underneath the skin, signal to the gate man. Watch him pull the pin. Take off for the footlights, end up in the dust, knowing that your entry fee was just another bust. Can anybody tell me, does anybody know why a man possessed of judgment has to go and rodeo?
Come load up your wagon, come hitch up your mules. Don't mind when the city folk call you blame fools. It's a life that we've chosen. We make the rules. We're the teamsters who haul the Mojave. We haul to the railroad from the Harmony Mills, up from the desert and over the hills. Every trip will try all of your skills with a 20-mule team to Mojave. It's a back door of hell you must go through, with 2 loaded wagons and a water tank too, to handle your teams. A jerk line must do on the Death Valley Road to Mojave. So load up your wagons, come hitch up your mules. Don't mind when the city folk call you blame fools. It's a life that we've chosen. We make the rules. We're the teamsters who haul the Mojave. Now the borax you're hauling weighs 22 tons, but it feels like 200 before you get done. Then there's 2 days to rest, and you're ready for fun when you come to the town of Mojave. Now the girls of Mojave, they'll give you a dance. If there's a card game, we'll all take a chance. We won't have enough left for a new pair of pants by the time we get out of Mojave. So load up your wagons, come hitch up your mules. Don't mind when the city folk call you blame fools. It's the life that we've chosen. We make the rules. We're the teamsters who haul the Mojave.
Ken Graydon once said the cowboy and sailor have a lot in common. They both live outdoors and use the stars as landmarks. He's been collecting and writing songs of the sea for years, noticing that most of the sea songs are based in the Atlantic. His special interest is songs of the Pacific. He's put some exciting Pacific sagas to music and collected songs from this ocean that are often quite different from their Atlantic counterparts.
There's a book, Quarterdeck and Saddlehorn, about Lieutenant Ned Beale, who led the Camels into Southern California. He resigned a commission in the Navy and took a commission in the Army and rode from Texas to California. He obviously knew both horseback and deckback. They had the commonality of using the stars as a guide at night. There is a current song called Point Your Wagon Tongue Toward the Old North Star, ostensibly so you'd know which way to go in the morning. Well, unless it was high noon, you knew which way was west and which way was east, and consequently which was north and south. But it would help in the morning if you had the wagon tongue pointed in a set direction. They both relied heavily on ropes for all of their work. They were a small, select crew of people, whether you were on the sea or on horseback. You got along with your fellow man. You could not get away. You worked in the same environs. Much more notably on the deck of a ship than you could ride a little bit apart from a herd. But there were many similarities. Individual men in each case. Oh, you seafaring men, you deep water rovers, you East India sailors, you bold Gloucester men, you old Viking raiders, bold Cape Horn traders. Your grandsons salute you, you seafaring men, from Gloucester to Biscay, and on to Sao Paulo, from Bath to New Brunswick, and on to Calais, Dundee to Dover, and half the world over. You were either arriving or sailing away. So here's to the shades of you deep water sailors. Here's to the memories that you left for us then. You sons of John Cabot, you Portuguese sailors, you old Dundee whalers, you seafaring men. Windmill, harness the wind, shifting and turning your face to the wind as a sunflower follows the sun, caressed by the breezes that wander the land. Yours is a task that will never be done. Windmill, harness the wind, turning, revolving, and bring the water. Windmill, circle and spin, promise of life for tomorrow. Tall standing wind dancer, beckon the traveler, raising your arms in embrace to the sky. Stand by the water tank, close by the riverbed, easing the thirst of all who pass by. Windmill, harness the wind, turning, revolving, and bring the water. Windmill, circle and spin, promise of life for tomorrow. Friend of the cottonwood, hope of the prairie, giver of life in the dry, empty land. Child of the open sky, here is your legacy. The earth shall be greener wherever you stand. Windmill, harness the wind, turning, revolving, and bring the water. Windmill, circle and spin, promise of life for tomorrow. Now, this is a song that has no known author. It came up during the great trail drive days of the 1890s, just after the Civil War. And it sort of grew with every trail drive. It would come back with another verse or two added. It's called the Chisholm Trail. There are over 400 verses to it, and we're not going to do all of them. Now come along, boys, and listen to my tale. Tell you all my troubles on the old Chisholm Trail. From T-I-A-P-A-P-A-P-A, coming T-I-A-P-A-P-A. I started up the trail October 23rd. Started up the trail with the two you heard. Coming T-I-A-P-A-P-A-P-A, coming T-I-A-P-A-P-A. Now the grub we get ain't fit to eat. There's rocks in the beans and sand in the meat. Coming T-I-A-P-A-P-A-P-A, coming T-I-A-P-A-P-A. It's bacon and beans most every day. Sooner be chewing on prairie hay. Coming T-I-A-P-A-P-A-P-A, coming T-I-A-P-A-P-A. There's a stray in the herd, the boss said kill it, so I shot him in the rump with the handle of a skillet. Coming T-I-A-P-A-P-A-P-A, coming T-I-A-P-A-P-A. Well, we rounded them up, put them in the cars. That was the last of the old two bars. Coming T-I-A-P-A-P-A-P-A, coming T-I-A-P-A-P-A. There's 50 head of whiteface moving 5 miles down the road. They raise the dust enough to make you gag. And the fences on the shoulders keep 'em bunched, and in the rear there's a kid on a plug riding drag. Now you and me, we know they're Herefords, and if they'd run 10 feet they'd die, but to him, they're Texas Longhorns, and they're mean. And there's 1,000 head, and it's up to him to keep 'em bunched and moving up the Chisholm Trail to Abilene. No, it's not like in the old days when the prairie ran forever, and horses, men, and cattle was the show. Weekdays now, he herds the school books, and he rides a bus to school because nowadays a horse would be too slow. But on weekends and in summer when there's herding work to do and they need someone to chouse them when they lag, if you look for him, you'll find him heading out for someplace new. Just a kid on a plug riding drag. Cool Angelina runs glossy and gliding. Crooked Colorado runs weaving and winding. Red River runs rusty. The Wichita's clear. And down by the Brazos I courted my dear. She hugged me, she kissed me, and she called me her dandy. The Brazos runs muddy and sometimes quicksandy. She hugged me, she kissed me, and she called me her dear. Down by the Brazos, she left me alone, singing hi-la-la-lee, la-la, give me your hand. Hi-la-la-lee, la-la, give me hi-la-la-lee-la-la, give me your hand. There's many a river waters the land. Now the girls of Little River, they're plump and they're pretty. The Sabine and the Sulphur have many a beauty. The banks of the Neches have girls by the score. So down by the Brazos I'll wander no more. Hi-la-la-lee-la-la, give me your hand. Hi-la-la-lee-la-la, give me your hand. Hi-la-la-lee-la-la, give me your hand. There's many a river waters the land.
So what do we all have in common with the American cowboy? Our hearts are all the same, but their songs ride the ranges of their souls.
Blue Mountain with a horse head on your side. You've won my heart to keep. My home, it was in Texas. My name you must not know, for I seek a refuge from the law, where the sage and the pinon grow. I chum with Latigo Gordon. We drink at the Blue Goose Saloon. We dance all night with the Mormon girls, ride home neath the light of the moon. Blue Mountain, your azure deep. Blue Mountain, your sides are steep. Blue Mountain with a horse head on your side. You've won my heart to keep. Let me live where a coyote sings, where he calls up the moon to the nighttime sky, where there is room for nature's things to hide in the brush as I pass by. Let me live where a coyote sings his shimmering cry to his kin to feed, when the shadowy owl has taken wing and all the world has taken heed. Perhaps there's something wild in me that needs to hear his greeting ring. I only know that I must be someplace where coyotes sing. My views aren't shared by everyone. I cannot speak for everything. But when my time to live is done, let me rest where coyotes sing.